All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another exciting, head-scratching episode of Insane Disappearances. Once again, I have another crazy story for you today. It's not recent, but it's not one of those stories from way back in like the early 50s. This is like back in 1991. But the first thing I want to do is I want to provide a quote for you guys that'll help you think, while you're listening to my channel. And this is a special quote. This is one that I came up, all the quotes that I'll mention, I came up with myself. So this one is your quote for, today. It's not wrong being curious. It's what you're curious about that's the problem. AKA, you might not like the answer you get when you're trying to dig into something that, well, this is me talking. So that part where it ended with the word "get," that was the quote. But I say that to say this: you start digging into things that pull you towards it you're curious about. Okay, like a real strange disappearance, and you're trying to figure out how they died, but it doesn't give you any evidence of how they died. But here's the crazy part: it gives you evidence of how they died. The problem is, what kind of being could make a person die like that? You've never heard of anybody on this planet die by the hands of a human in that manner. So that right there, that evidence, hopefully will make you wake up and say, okay, now I've never heard of a person dying like that if they were murdered by somebody. So it's got to be something. But what? And that's where the part comes in where you say you might not like the answer that you seek, because it may be something that goes way beyond your level of thinking. Logically, maybe. But when you come here, you don't get that. It may be a part of it because the story that I read, or the case I read about, may be attached to some logical explanations, which wouldn't make it a missing 411 type story or case. But still, I like to still bring that forward so there won't be any animosity between what I be talking about, because you never know, you just never know. But anyway, the answer that you may get may be something about a creature that you never heard of, or it may be dimensional portals you may not, in the fact that it spooks you out would be the one thing that makes you want to not learn any more about it, because you just be like, you know what, this is too much, I'm gonna just back away, I'm gonna turn the other cheek. Also, another thing I want to talk about. I posted the thumbnail on my. Well, I pasted the thumbnail on my on the video about the guy I talked about, the first video, of a foresty area with a waterfall and a big lake in the center. This is something that I thought about a lot. When people who go into the national parks, they're so, enthralled by the beauty of it and everything, with the trees and all that stuff, the splendor of nature, everything about it, the mountain ranges, the grass, the lakes, the rivers, all that stuff is beautiful to a lot of people. But here's where it gets weird. Let's just say that same exact area is the area where you go all the time. Then all of a sudden you hear about a young boy, maybe 2 years old, or maybe he was a grown man or a grown woman, somehow vanished without a trace in that same area that you think is very beautiful. Now let's just say I took a picture of that same area, right? And I showed it to you. After hearing about all this stuff, would you still think that that photo of that area that you used to go to is still beautiful? Think about it. All this so-called beauty when it comes to nature and the forest and stuff, but people are disappearing in these places all the time, and may have disappeared on the same trail that you are jogging on, or camped in, or hiked in, or even hunted in. Wouldn't that kind of make you feel a little like just cringy? I don't know, but still, would you still think that place is beautiful after hearing about all that stuff and knowing as much as you know about the missing 411 cases? Would you still think that place is beautiful? I mean, yeah, it does look beautiful if you look at it, from 1,000 feet up, or even 30,000 feet up. Even in photos, it looks beautiful. But the reality of it is that somebody disappeared in that same exact place and was never found. So I can't do that. I can't say that this place is beautiful when I know somebody disappeared in it. Man, please. You think I want to go back to Vinny after hearing about that? If I got children that may not come back if I bring them there. So I talked about this last night about how the government tries to cover all this stuff up because they want to bring in that revenue. They want to keep it coming. They want to keep you coming to enjoy all this stuff. But I'm not going to help you guys get rich off of me coming to that park. No, sir. Not me. But anyway, guys, I don't want to ramble like I did last night, so I'm just going to keep going. All right. Today's story, my friends, is about another Crater Lake incident. But this, like I said before, happened in 1991. Now, this is coming from Crater Lake National Park News. But the site that it comes from is called Crater Lake Institute. But anyway, to start off with, now the skeletal remains of a body found in a remote area of Crater Lake National Park last summer are being studied to determine if they might be a person missing in the in the park since 1991. Park Ranger David Brennan said information about the discovery made by a firefighter last September in the remote Bybee Creek area of the park. Now it was withheld pending a further investigation. And see, stuff like that happens all the time. Now, if they already found out there's something weird about that, there was something weird about that case, and maybe they found something, they probably didn't want to put too much information out there. They do that a lot. If they find some information that sounds too weird for even them, they even want to deal with, they just toss it aside, and they either don't say nothing or they just mention, it's under investigation. But they're really just covering that up so they won't have to even bring that information out, because if they can't find anything about that person that died on or in the body, they're going to be looked at as a bunch of people who don't know what the heck they're doing, because these families want to know what happened to their child. But they can't find the cause of death. They think that that's impossible to do because they have all this technology and all this know-how, the schools that they went to learn all this stuff, yet they aren't smart enough to find the cause of death. That's only because it can't be found. But anyway, now, winter snows prevented rangers from reaching the area until this summer. This summer meaning the year when they found the body, which was in 2009. When the park rangers began a joint investigation with FBI agents and an FBI recovery team, from the condition of the remains, it was evident they had been there some number of years. Now, this is what David Brennan was saying, at the time when he was being interviewed. Along with limited remains, a small number of personal effects were found last year and again this summer. Not enough were found. However, to make an identification, remains include teeth with dental work, which this is exactly what Brennan told the media at the time. And that's very true with a lot of cases. Like, say if someone was beaten to death and they can't seem to determine who the person was by just looking at the face, they have to go for the teeth just to get a DNA sample in order to identify the person. And you have to be beat up pretty bad for you not to even recognize a person's face, So, yeah. But anyway, now, Brennan said law enforcement officials had contacted the family of Glenn Allen Mackie of Brea, California, whose vehicle was found at the Rim Village parking lot in October of 1991. His driver's license, keys, passport, cash, and toiletries were in the car, but no trace of Mackie was ever found. We're certainly looking at the possibility of whatever it was he was saying, because it didn't. I don't think it mentioned that part. It just said Brennan said. But okay, now the challenge in 1991 was we did not know where he went to. Brennan described Bybee Creek as very remote, heavily wooded, and not the kind of spot where people would tend to go. Now, the cause of death remains unknown, and Brennan said there is no indication of criminal action. In a related matter, Brennan said search efforts earlier this summer for Sammy Bohike, an 8-year-old who has been missing in the Cleetwood Cove since last summer, have come up absolutely empty. Searchers spent 5 days probing the region where Bohike was last seen. Okay, now see, this is exactly what I was talking about last night when it comes to these certain disappearances. When they go into these areas, a couple of things either happen or don't happen. They'll tell their family or friends that they're going to be at a certain area, like, for a hike, and they'll tell them when they're coming back. Some of them don't even do that. And if they do call, it's right in the middle of something about to happen to them. And that's when you get those strange calls like saying, "Oh my gosh, where are you?" And then all of a sudden the phone line goes dead. Or you hear them screaming and it sounds like they're being pulled away from the phone by something. And then after that, nothing. They find their phone, it's either dead or smashed into a million pieces. Now, with a situation like this, he goes into the park. They said they didn't know where he was going. Obviously, the family didn't know that either. Now, they may have known that he was very well interested in hiking or maybe jogging on the trails or maybe even camping. I don't know. It doesn't mention that part. But the fact that he goes into the park and after that, nothing. Now, they said they found his vehicle. They found his vehicle at the Rim Village parking lot. But they didn't find him. So, who's to say anybody really knew where he was going? Now, I don't know if he lives near his family, but if they didn't know where he was going, for them to not put down what they didn't know, obviously, he did all this without telling anybody. And he goes in, the Park Service realized that he was going to a certain spot, because that's where his car was found, but there was no him. Okay, so all you know is he went into the park. He was supposed to came back, but they didn't know when. But that wasn't the case. So, and with this other story about this young Sammy Bohike, same with him. He goes into an area and nothing. He just vanishes without a trace. So let's talk about this. What actually does that? How do these people disappear? Now, if they were camping or hiking, they would have to have provisions with them and some gear. They didn't mention anything about it. They just said his car, and that's it. Well, car and his belongings, personal belongings, and toiletries. So maybe he was prepared to a certain point, but not for an all-day hike or maybe even a 2-day camping trip. He probably just had some toilet paper if he had to go to the bathroom or whatever the case may be, because, nature is your toilet when you're out there by yourself. So, animals do it all the time, so, hey, why can't we, right? But obviously, he had all that stuff together. He had his toiletries, so if he had to go to the bathroom, he could do what he needed to do and be on his merry way. But somewhere along the line, obviously, he forgot it. So maybe he didn't think he was going to be there that long, but he just brought it with him just in case. But he got out the car, left his belongings in the car, so he wouldn't be weighed down by it. I would imagine, because that's how I would feel. I don't like being weighed down when I'm out in an open area going out to have some fun. I like to keep myself as light as possible. So he probably kept that stuff in the car so he wouldn't be weighed down and probably be like, "Oh, man, I gotta get these things out of my pocket," or whatever. But there is no known information, even to this day. Okay, they found his remains in 2009. Okay, but there was nothing. Oh, wait, no. Hold up. I'm sorry. There was something on here about 2009 on this. I was looking at something else. Because it says up here at the top that, they didn't find his remains because he was never found. But I think the story broke in 2007. I'm sorry, that's what it was. The story broke in 2007, but they found his car in 1991. So to this day, there has been no information dealing with what happened to him because there is nothing to talk about. So yeah, that's crazy. Well, okay, but that's pretty much it about that story. It's pretty short story about what happened because it's really, like I said, there's no evidence, so can't really go into too much detail because there's nothing really to say other than a theory on how he disappeared, and we already know about that theory. It's obviously a portal that he walked through that probably didn't even see with his own eyes because energy is invisible to a certain point. But if the area around you is wavy, like say there's like a thin layer of energy that distorts the environment around you. I'm not even going to say space and time because that's something I'm going to get to that in a minute. But the environment around you tends to look kind of distorted or ripply or wavy. That would be something you need to stay away from. If you see that, and I don't care how small or how big it is, you need to turn around and run the other way. Do not go anywhere near that because that, my friends, is a portal. Okay? So, I'm just saying, think about it. If you ever saw Sliders, which is one of my favorite shows, starring Jerry O'Connell, the special effects for that show was very on point. The graphics was incredible. I loved it. And it was more realistic than your typical special effects for any high-level movie that you find in Hollywood. Okay? And the fact that it was a portal that opened up, and you see all these streaks and lights just shooting into, like, it's almost like, I guess whatever was inside the tunnel, you could see it kind of coming out in those little curves, like on the portal itself. But it was the part around it that really got me on how it distorted the environment around it. It had these little waves, and when you went in behind the tunnel, you could see how it distorted, the environment around it. It just in that one spot. And it was just very well put together. So that I'm thinking that even though it was a TV show, I know for a fact that the truth is sometimes hidden in plain sight in TV shows, movies, even cartoons. They talk about it on YouTube all the time, how they say, there's a certain Bugs Bunny cartoon that predicted the falling of the towers, in New York. So, and as a matter of fact, I remember that it was I can't remember the character, but he was like, the towers, they're falling, and he hits the ground. So, even though that's a cartoon that aired probably back in like 1940 or 1950, something like that, just the fact that it said the word, the towers are falling, way back when, it makes you wonder, was this planned from back then? Did he already have plans to build a tower in New York back in those days? If it was erected around that time, I'm not sure when it was erected. But for them to say it way back then and then you actually see it happen now, if you're not paying attention to things, these things are going to pass you by. You're going to be like, oh, snap. He was right. Because honestly, I didn't know anything about it. I actually didn't find out about it until years and years later after 9/11 already happened. I see this video on there talking about how cartoons predicted 9/11, and I heard what the character said and see him falling, and I'm like, wow. And then I look at what happened. Something to think about. But anyway, since there's not too much I can say about that, I want to get into something a little bit more deeper, like last night. And like I said, I promised you that I'm going to have these moments, like a deep thought moment for talking. I want to talk about time. Okay? What is time? Do you know who invented the word time? Do you know what time really is? I mean, to me, time, the word time is an illusion. Okay? A man-made name used to describe how we can go throughout our day in like these little increments, like say you be gone just such a place for an hour, then you come back home. Here's where I start to really think. What we're looking at as time is actually a cycle. Okay? Now, if you look up the word cycle, it'll give you a definition. But when the powers that be or the man or whoever else comes up with all this stuff and puts a label on something that can be very well described, you'll find that time doesn't exist if you look at it in a different way. You can, just like, okay, here's a perfect example. Let's just say you're doing something and you just kind of blank out. You're so focused on that, you lose track of time. Okay? Once you get your mind off of the word time, not so much and off of everything dealing with time, like a clock, a cell phone, the numbers that they used in order to tell time, you get rid of all that. What do you have? All you have is a moment. And you don't want to say moment in time because it just brings that word right back into the fold. You just want to say a moment that just flows. There you have it. Okay? It's like I said before about how we have to get rid of labels because the description is so much better. It tells you exactly what this something is. A word just tells you what it is, but it's better to know what it does. And right now, the it is the way a moment flows around you. Okay? Now, think about it. Back in the day, pioneers, I don't think they had clocks at the time, or if you go even further, they didn't go by time. They just went by the cycles of the sun, okay, and how it rises and falls. Then you have things like winter. You got winter, spring, summer, fall. Those are cycles. Then you have morning, noon, and night. Those are cycles. So if we rely on just that, we wouldn't need all of this stuff that has a lot to do with time, because you go to work, you come home, but you got to sit up there and look at that clock or look at your watch from the time you walk in the door to the time it's time for you to clock out or sign out, however it is you go home. Okay? That means you know exactly how many hours you're going to be working for that day to get paid. You got to work 8 hours. That's time. But if you rely on just the moment itself, and I know this is far-fetched because the powers that be created all this, but that would be a better way to live our life. Think about it. You won't have to worry about rushing to get to work. You won't have to worry about rushing to get to your mom's house, because you're looking at your watch saying, okay, I'm supposed to be work by 3 o'clock. So I got to make sure I take my shower at 8 o'clock. Then I got to cook my food at 10 o'clock. Then I got to get my clothes on at 11 o'clock. Then I got to take a little nap from 12 to, 1:30. Then I got to get up, put my shoes on, by a certain, let's say, give myself like a 30-minute start. That way I can get to work on time. And depending on how far away you have to drive, you still got to pan out a time frame or how long it takes for you to get from point A to point B. And when I say time frame, I mean you got to look at the clock and say, okay, you study how long it takes for you to get there. All this stuff can be very frustrating because you're overworking your mind about stuff that don't even exist. Yes, numbers exist, okay, but the word time is just an illusion to basically give numbers a purpose for you to go throughout your day. Okay, and I know numbers are a very big thing. It's woven into the fabric of our universe. Numbers are everywhere. And I talked about this last night on my 369 video. Okay, but the whole point is time The word time and everything dealing with time itself is an illusion. Take away everything dealing with time, what do you have? You have cycles. Okay? But you have to acknowledge that everything that we do that time controls is actually just a cycle. Can you imagine if we just live by a cycle? We sit up there and watch the sun come up. Because think about it. What time do we go to bed? At night, right? Do you need a clock to tell you that? Do you? I know I don't. I just know if I'm tired, I'm going to sleep. It could be daylight, it could be nighttime. But the natural flow and order of things from way back when was you wake up in the morning, you do what you have to do, and at night you go to bed. They didn't worry about what time it was because back then they had kerosene lamps. They didn't have clocks. And if they did, they still relied on the moment and the cycle of how everything works. Okay? They didn't rely on clocks. So I'm pretty sure they had, I don't know exactly when, what year, those clock towers were built. Because I don't know if that was the first clock or not. But, like I said, when clocks and these towers with clocks on them were first built, that's when everybody really started getting into the flow of time. But way before then, before clocks were even invented, they relied on nothing but the sun and the cycle of the seasons. They knew when they had to plow their crops or plant their crops, get them up. They knew all this stuff because they relied on nature to tell them what they need to do to make their lives better. They didn't need no clock to tell them all this stuff. Because nowadays, they say, I got to get up at 5 a.m. and start plowing the field. And then after that, around 8 o'clock in the morning, I got to go slop the pigs. I got to milk the cows at a certain time. All this stuff I got to have done by 8 o'clock because my wife is cooking dinner. Then after that, I got to go to bed and get up in the morning to go to work. These are farmers of today who still work, but some don't. Some rely on just the farm itself because that's their life. They do that to make money. That's why they have crops. Depending on how many acres of crops you got, that's how they get paid. But they still have to rely on time because they got to know exactly what time of the day they have to plow the field. They got to know what time of the day they have to take it to the market. They got to know what time of day the market closed. They got to know what time of day this and that. Everything, like I said, is so cluttered. And time alone makes you think too much. And it makes you worry too much. Because, like I said before, if you know what time you got to be to work, but you looking at the fact that you are pushing for time because you're going to be late. If you weren't thinking about time, you wouldn't have to worry about being late because time wouldn't even exist. And there's another thing. Here's another thing. This is something that I really, really thought about. And it kind of really opened up my mind as well when I said this. Things that we know of exist because we allow it to. Think about it. Things only exist because we allow it to. Now, if you could say if we stop thinking about it or stop allowing it to exist, will it just fade away? No, not really. We would just stop relying on what we know about everything that we know, like time. If we didn't rely on that and we just stop wanting it to exist, we'll stop relying on it and we will just go back to the old ways. Now, will that ever happen? I don't know. I would think that would be an easy way of life if we just relied on the moments and the cycles. That is your clock right there. Think about it. You got morning, noon, and night. You get up in the morning, you do what you got to do. In the evening, that'll be lunchtime. You eat your lunch. You do whatever else you got to do up until it gets dark. Then you go to bed. Then you wake up when the sun comes up. Now, isn't that easy? You ain't got to worry about time and being late or waking up late. Time just controls too much to the point where that's all we think about. The first thing I bet you that you do when you at work is you look at your clock on your cell phone to see, what time it is, what time you got to go lunch, what time you got to clock out. Because if you ain't looking at the clock, you're going to miss that moment when you have to clock out, because your job may say that they don't want anyone getting any creep overtime. So that means you got to be at that clock before it's time for you to go. Let's just say you got to clock out at 3 o'clock in the morning. So that means you would have to be at that clock at a certain time before it's time for you to swipe that card, on that little slit. So that means if you got to clock out at 3 o'clock, you want to at least be at the clock 10 minutes before it's time for you to clock out. That way you got all the time in the world. So you won't be rushing to clock out. All that is worry. Because I can tell you right now, that's how it is in my job. I got to worry because I keep thinking, if I got to clock out at 3, that means I got to be at the clock at least 2:50 in the morning. Give me that extra time to walk all the way up front. Okay, so that's another problem. You also got to look at how long it takes for you to get from the back of the building where you may work at all the way up to the front where they have clocks at. Now, at my job, they used to have these time clocks in every operation, so you won't have to worry about having to run way up front to clock out and go home. Because we had the type of clocks where you had your begin tour, your begin lunch, your out lunch, and end tour. Okay? You have all these buttons on there that you can pick so you clock in on time or whatever. But they got rid of that. So now they want everybody to run their butt all the way up front to to clock out to go home. So that means you really got to be on it with your time. Okay? That means you got to know exactly what time you need to get off that floor so you can get up front and clock out so you won't be late or get in trouble, because you will get written up. This is just personal experience. So, don't pay me no mind. But anyway, like I said, all this here wouldn't have to be something for you to worry about if you just relied on the moment that you're surrounded by and the word cycle. Learn about what that means and see how well your life can turn out if you just relied on the cycles. Winter, spring, summer, fall, morning, noon, and night and day, all of that stuff. I'm telling you, your life would be so much better if you didn't have to worry about clocks and time itself. Because think about it. Sir Isaac Newton got that idea. Well, okay, that's another guy. That's dealing with gravity. That's a whole nother story right there. I'm not ready for that yet. But time alone, like I said, is a word that just slightly describes what time is. Now, I don't care how you look at it. A label is not going to give you any kind of description. That's just going to tell you what this something is. But you have to learn about what this something is and what it does just to get an idea of why that name was chosen to describe what that something is. And once you do that, you're going to start thinking, or at least I hope you would. You were like, okay, so I looked at the definition. It's telling me what it is. But in my mind, this is the way I'm thinking. Why would I need that word to tell me what all this does? Just looking at the word alone doesn't tell me what it does. It tells you need to look it up if it sounds interesting just by the name of itself. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, if you see a certain word that catches your eye, like time, you're going to want to know what is time. So you go to the dictionary. It gives you a definition. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do that right now. I know I should have had it up before I did that, but can I say this is a raw video, so that's how I do. All right, just give me 1 second here. All right, I'm gonna look up the word time, and I'm gonna look up the word cycle. That way you can get a better idea of what I'm talking about here. Time definition. Here we go. Okay. It says here, the indefinite continued progress of existence and events in the past, present, and future regarded as a whole. And then number 2 says a point of time as measured in hours and minutes passed midnight, or noon. Okay? So, all these definitions on what time is. But it's not describing what it does. It's just giving you a name, and it's giving you a definition of what it does, but it's still not a really good definition of what time is. I mean, like I said, the word time is just a name. But what they are actually describing is a cycle, but it's broken down in numbers, between hours, minutes, and seconds. And it just went crazy with it. Everything had to be broken down in increments of time so that we can understand the way everything flows. Everything flows because of a cycle, not because of time itself. There is no such thing as time. So therefore, why have the word time in the dictionary or in our school books or even in our vocabulary? It doesn't need to be there, so why is it? You want to know why? It's a means of control. You'd be surprised how all of this started. It started with them creating this word. Therefore, it causes things to be controlled. Time controls a lot of things. It controls our lives. It controls everything. It controls what time we need to turn off our lights. It controls the time when we need to come home from our job. It controls the times when our kids got to come inside and play. It controls the time of when we have to cook the food for our children so they can have nourishment in their bodies, so they can get up and go to school the next day. All this is controlled by time, which was created by them. Think about it. Control, people, is what it's all about. Why should we have to live by a controlled means of going throughout our day? That's stupid. Now, if we learn the truth about how things work, we don't need their time in order to go throughout our day. It just don't make no sense. Okay, so now I'm going to look up cycle. And then we can go from there. Okay, cycle. This is the definition of what it says. A system. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. That says cyclone. Oh, boy. That was my bad, folks. It was a typo. Cycle. There we go. The definition is a lot shorter, too. Okay. A series of events that are regularly repeated in the same order. And it says a complete set of series. This one says ride a bicycle, but it's saying like this is just examples, like say with a sentence or whatever. Okay. It also says here is a move in or follow a regularly repeated sequence of events. Okay. Now, when you look at that definition, what does it tell you? It tells you that the moment surrounded by our, I won't even say, well, I can say lifestyle or just basically how we live. We live in the moment. That's where that term comes from. Living in the moment. This entire sequence of events marking this point right here all the way back to when we were first born. That is the moment for each and every human on this planet. Everybody has a moment, and it's all compressed together where at some point we realize that we are connected in some kind of way. Okay? At some point, these people are going to meet because of this cycle. But it just depends on how that cycle is planned out. Okay, we may do something that will cause our cycle to get connected with somebody else's cycle. Therefore, we end up meeting somewhere within that cycle. It's all a big connection. Okay, you just have to see it that way. You got to think big. You got to open up your mind, and you got to see reality for what it really is. That's what I do. I told you I meditate a lot, and it opens up my mind and my heart and my spirit to soak in all of this new information that I have been receiving. And I'm telling you, once I started to really think about this stuff, think about the labels, think about the meaning of the labels, and think about everything else, on how things flow. That's when I came up with the idea about time. And it started to really click about, okay, just like how the guy who had invented gravity because an apple fell on his head, Sir Isaac Newton. How can you get what gravity is from an apple falling off a tree? That's a whole nother ballgame right there. I don't really want to get into that just yet because I want to do a deep thought moment per video. So, but it kind of connects with that as far as how all of this was created. Time was created because of a word. Okay? And they somehow connected all these extensions that can tell you what time is or what it does. Time is just a means of control in a sense where it controls everything that we do and how long we need to do it. If we go by a cycle, we don't need all that. We don't need to worry about how long we need to be doing this or when we need to do it or what time we need to stop doing this. A cycle is a never-ending flow, okay? And so is a moment. Moments do have endings, but it begins anew, throughout that cycle, okay? Sometimes we have repeated moments, but it just depends on your perception on what you like to do, okay? All this is connected, okay? Moments, cycles. But these moments and cycles are being controlled by time itself. Okay, sometimes we always say that we don't have enough time in the day to do some of the things that we like to do. Like, let's just say we want to take our children to the park, but you got to be to work the next day, so you can't be out too long. So what you do, you use time to figure out exactly what time and when and what day and what date you want to do this event with your children. So you pick another time, another day that is conducive to what you want to do. So you wait until that moment where your time span is expanded for a long period of time. That would be on your day off or around vacation time. Okay? But once again, all of this is still controlled by the word time and what time means. Okay? Take away all of that. After you do that, you have all the time in the world to do these things that you want to do. You ain't got to be like, okay, well, I got to do this before it get dark because I ain't gonna be able to see when I'm getting on the road. Just little stuff. But still, people are using time to control everything in their lives. Do you want your life to be controlled by a bunch of numbers or the meaning of time itself? Time doesn't even have a meaning. It's not real. It's an illusion. It doesn't exist. You probably do think it exists because you're looking at your watch and say, okay, how long are you going to be talking about this? Because it'll be a 30-minute video, a 15-minute video. It doesn't matter. So you're looking at this and trying to figure out when am I going to stop talking? Or how long is this video going to be? Sometimes I have hour videos. Sometimes I have 15-minute videos. Sometimes I have 30-minute videos. Sometimes I have 20-minute videos. Control, people. Time controls how long we talk. It controls how long we carry a conversation. It controls everything. We just don't look at it like that. We know about time and how you know exactly how long you need to be sleeping or resting until you have to get up in the morning and go to work. That's what time does. So I want you guys to really, really, really think about this. What's more important? How long you have to do something until that something ends? Or would you rather be doing something freely where you can do it for as long as you want without any worry about, okay, I got to stop because I got to do this later? I mean, you can do that later, but you can pick and choose when you're going to do it. You can do this for as long as you want, and when you're done with that, you go to the next task. Okay? Now, you still going to be looking up in the sky to see how long it's going to be until it gets dark, because that was the motion of everything back in those days when they relied on nothing but the sun's cycle as well as the elements, winter, summer, all that stuff. Okay? They chose to do something at the crack of dawn, like say if they plow in their fields or whatever, and then they just do what they got to do. And yeah, you don't still need time to know when you need to stop doing what you're doing. Like say if you want to do something, you want to have like a recreational moment with somebody, like when you want to go out and go somewhere and have some fun with a friend. Okay, you don't have to worry about saying, okay, now we're gonna go to this place at 5:00, and then we're gonna be there until 6. We're gonna go to this place, go to the movies. Then after that, we're gonna go home, and then we gotta take our shower. We gotta go to bed, and we gotta get up in the morning so we can be to work by 2:00 in the afternoon. Once again, control. That's all it is. Time doesn't mean anything. It may have a definition. You may hear the word time, and what does time do when you hear it? It makes you think about, okay, you know what? My show's coming on at 8:00. I gotta make sure I be in place so that when it comes on. I mean, that's gonna happen in this era because we have time and we have technology. Time and technology is connected as well. Just think about it. They put in place TVs for you to watch your favorite shows, but they all have these time slots. There's that name again, time slot, which controls how long that show is going to be on. You watch it from 8:00 to 9:00. Then if you got another show that comes on the same channel, you sit there and wait a couple minutes until you see that show. Control, people. Now, if everything flowed freely, you would just do what you got to do in the morning, go throughout your day. You may have another test you want to do, and this stuff will last up until noon. You go home and eat your lunch, and then you still know that it's still daylight, so you ain't got to worry about, you ain't going to be looking at your watch. You just go out there, you do something else until, like, say, 3:00. Take a little afternoon nap, and then when you're rested, you wake up. And then you do something else, but you do it inside the house because it's getting late. So it's like afternoon, like late afternoon. Then when it gets completely dark, what do? You blow out the kerosene flame in your lamp, and you go to bed. You go to sleep, and you wake up when you're not tired anymore. See, because you're using your internal clock. That's more understandable than using the actual clock, because you got to hear that stupid alarm that blares in your ear. Sometimes you don't even hear it, so that's worry because of time again, because maybe you accidentally set the darn clock for, like, I don't know, PM the next night, so it doesn't go off. So that means you late getting up for work. Control. Once again, it controls everything we do, from the time we get up in the morning to the time we go to bed. And in between that, you still got time because you're counting those minutes and those seconds and those hours to see how long it'll take for you to get from the time you clock in to the time you go home. And then you got your breaks and you got your lunches and all that stuff. Control. So, without further ado, if you want to be controlled by time itself, which was put together by them, and when I say them, you know who I'm talking about, the powers that be, the government, okay? They control everything that we do because of the word clock, because of the word time, because of the word, 24 hours, 36 hours, military time, all this stuff. And think about it, the military uses it, so that means obviously they need it too. They don't, but they have to do that in order to use everything that they use, to do whatever it is they do. Which I say is wrong, trust me. But, yes, if you want to be controlled by time, okay. But if you don't want to be, this is what I want you to do. When you're at home, and let's say it's your off day, you ain't got nothing to do. You just sitting around the house and you just relaxing, watching TV. Take some time out to just let your mind go blank. Don't think about nothing, including what time it is. Because I can guarantee you, let's just say you decide you do it. You're gonna just ignore time itself for like 15 minutes. I bet you $1 that it will feel like you've been sitting there for 20 minutes, but only 10 minutes passed. I done been through it. I was at work. I know everything there is to know about time. Okay, I was taught how to use time when I was a kid, just like everybody else. Okay, you know that little wooden clock with the smiley face and the little red, hour and minute things. You know, the little poles or whatever. Okay, yeah, I learned time the same way. Okay, so when something like that is happening, I have to go by that. You know, it's just the way it is. I have to go by it because that still is a part of my life. But if you want to just go by a cycle, you can just rely on the cycles of the moments that surround your lifestyle and the cycle of the seasons, the cycle of the sun rising and falling. Okay? And then you got, measuring of the stars or using the stars to navigate you to get to where you got to go. Not worrying about how long you think it'll take you to get from one point to another if you just navigate yourself by the stars. You use nature and you use the elements. You use the moments in your life to map out where you're going and what time you're going to go to sleep. It is just that simple. And see, that's another thing that I realized. The word simple, or at least saying something that's simple, most people don't believe that it is because there's so much you have to do that in order for it to be simple. You still have to work at it for it to be simple. You got to set it up to be simple. So in a way, it's not really simple because if it was simple, it would just happen. It would just flow. Okay, this is how we do it. We create something that's simple by making it easy for us to grasp what makes it simple. That's work. That's using time in order to make something like that happen. You think about how long it would take for you to make something simple. Like say, let's just say you want to set up an area at your job. And you want to set it up in a way that'll make it easy for you to do what you have to do. Okay, so you put something close to you where all you got to do is reach for it, no more than an inch. And you got your pens and your papers all set up the way you want it. You got your computer in a spot where it makes it comfortable for you, so you won't have to be going way over here and swing way over there. Because I see this stuff all the time behind counters where they got the computer way over here, but they got the customer way over there. So I mean, you gotta walk your butt way over there, type in this information. All this stuff is due because of time. All this stuff happens because of time. Because you gotta figure out how long it'll take for you to get this information up, so they won't be standing there all day. If they just stop thinking about time, you won't have to worry about how long it'll take for you to get this done, so I can get out of here and go home. That makes life so difficult because you just worry too much. You're worrying about time. You're thinking about time. You're trying to make time work for you. That's too much. Way too much. You don't want to make it work for you. You make the moment work for you. That means you go by something that makes it easy without you having to create the easy. See, that's what we do. We create the easy life for ourselves. If we just let it flow, let things happen the way they're supposed to, everything will just fall into place. Patience also is a part of that. If you sit there and wait for the moment to happen, it will eventually happen regardless. You don't have to say, okay, I hope this happens, within a couple minutes because I'm too anxious. I just want it to happen. Ugh. That's time. And it's making you nuts because you're sitting there being impatient for something that is still going to happen, but you just want it to happen so much. So you sitting up there, you worrying yourself the whole time. Let's just say it took something that you were waiting on to happen 30 minutes to happen. But in between those 30 minutes, you constantly say, oh man, well, I can't wait, I'm excited. Maybe it's your favorite concert and you waiting for it to start. So you sitting in the audience and you waiting for it to start, but they playing all this other music that ain't got nothing to do with what you talking about, that what you trying to see. It could be somebody that was, headliner for that person, like say Janet Jackson, my very favorite singer. Okay, when I go to her concert, she had these backups that sang before her, like they kind of get the show hyped up for her. Okay, like one concert I went to that she was in, it was 112. This is a R&B group. I'm pretty sure you already knew that, but I'm just saying. It's an R&B group that was headlining for her. They sung their songs, and then she came on the stage. But I'm sitting here looking at these fools singing. Well, I can't call them fools, but looking at these people singing. So I'm sitting there trying to figure out when they going to stop singing so I can hear Janet Jackson. There's time getting in the way of my moment. Because see, time is like a knife. It pierces the moment in your universe, and it just, all that moment just gets, fused with time and how you got to sit there and wait until these people get finished. It may took probably like 15 minutes for them to finish singing what they were going to sing. And then after that, Janet Jackson comes on. Now, had I just forgot about time and just let the moment flow, I wouldn't even worry about how long they're going to be singing for her to get on stage and do her thing. Okay, I could have just let the moment flow and then she would sing. That would make the moment a whole lot better without you stressing over these guys singing before her. Because you would want her to come on first, right? If that was your favorite singer. Of course. But when something gets in the way of the time it took for her to get to the stage, you're going to be like, oh, why is this happening? I want to see it now. But that's just how it works. Time controls everything that we do. You may not realize it because it's just a natural part of our life. But when you start to think about it and you realize, dang, you know what? You're right, because I worry about me being late for work all the time, even though I'm always on time. And, I even worry about how long it's going to take for me to get from the store and back home because my show is coming on. I don't want to, be out too long. I may miss a couple of minutes of it. But, that's what time does. It interferes with the natural flow of the moment within your universe. Okay? So, once again, you don't want time to control your life, or you let the moment flow. Because if the moment flows, there's no control. And there's no time. It doesn't exist. It's an illusion. Think about it, folks. Anyway, I know I've been talking a lot, but I had to get this information out there. It was long, but it needed to be said. And you have to use these moments to think hard about reality and everything that has to do with it. But I'm going to get off this thing here. I just want to thank you guys for listening. I hope the information that I gave to you will open your mind and help your thinking. And I just hope I wasn't rambling, even though what I'm talking about is some real stuff, so you can't really call it rambling. But if you do, oh well. But anyway, I gotta go, guys. I had fun. I hope you did too. So, you know how I do it at the end of every video. Aloha, mahalo, and a hui ho. Peace out.